Alrighty, here we are. We are live. Welcome, everybody. We are discussing the Senior Bowl recap and just our overall personal thoughts on the Senior Bowl as a whole. I am your host, Matt Skura. As you can tell, my Twitter handle down below. And I have a great, fantastic co host to my right, Mr. Ethan Carboni. Ethan, how are you doing this fine Sunday, February 6th, 2022?
I'd be better if there was better football on to watch, but I'm pretty good. How are you?
I am doing good as well. Just going through the week. We got the Super Bowl next week, which is going to be an exciting matchup. But before we even talk about anything Super Bowl related, you have to talk about what went down during the Senior Bowl. And during the Senior Bowl, a lot of awesome things went down. This is where, in a way, you get to see the future. You could see guys like Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett improve the draft stock and just overall as a whole, just certain players that could help improve their elevation. Yeah, because obviously, some of the top players that'll be drafted, like Caden Hutchinson or Thibodeau, all these top players, where they're going to be at. But there are some key players to where, hey, maybe this guy could be a late second rounder or late first, but if they play good in the Senior Bowl, it could elevate their draft stock to be a mid first or even a mid second round pick. And I kind of want to throw this out there to you, Ethan. What were kind of your overall thoughts so far on the Senior Bowl? Was there anything that stood out to you?
Defense, really. I mean, a lot of top defensive prospects, I feel like, and offensive line. The defense shined brightest, and then the offensive line played their hearts out. And this year might have a lot of stacked interior offensive linemen, as well as a few tackles that I'm very interested in, as the Bears need a revamped offensive line.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that one. The Chicago Bears, they seem to have things going right. They have a solid defense. They might have their future quarterback in Justin Fields, but they have to fix that O-line because if they don't, man, oh man, Justin Fields is going to be in trouble. And I think you hit it right on the money there with that statement, just because of the simple fact of the QBs that we look at going into the draft. There's Kenny Pickett, there's Malik Willis, like I mentioned earlier, but there's other QBs as well. Guys like Desmond Ritter out of Cincinnati, Sam Howell out of North Carolina, and you kind of look at this QB class and is not as strong as the previous classes. We've been lucky the last couple of years to have good QB classes. In 2020, you saw guys like Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert drafted, all respectable level quarterbacks. And then just last year, just a lot of young QBs drafted, guys like Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields. You got a lot of good, even Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, a lot of good young quarterbacks with a lot of potential. And this year, you kind of look at the QB draft class, and you might see the first QB drafted in like the mid first round. In years past, you would see at least a quarterback or two drafted in the top 10. Whether it was Josh Allen being traded up and drafted at number 7 or Justin Herbert drafted at 6 one year. These quarterbacks, I don't see a team inside the top 5 or a top 10 drafting a QB, even after senior bowl performances like Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett. Would you agree with that statement, Ethan?
I do, because before the season I saw, wow, this might be a stacked quarterback class. I see at least 5 first round quarterbacks. I see maybe up to 10. And then college football plays out, and I'm at the point where I don't think a single quarterback should be picked in the first round if teams can help themselves.
Absolutely. If you were to look at the team that would most certainly need a quarterback, which team would that be?
I'm thinking the Steelers right now, and it's no secret they're in love with Malik Willis. We'll get into that in a minute, but Pittsburgh. You have Haskins, you have Rudolph competing for your starting spot next year. I think Mike Tomlin wants to keep his over 500 record. As well as I see your dad in the comments, Denver for sure also needs a quarterback. I just think if you're Pittsburgh, I need a quarterback that's not going to throw 20 interceptions, whereas Denver's supposedly rumored to sign Teddy Bridgewater to a 2-year, $39 million deal. So,
Ooh, that's a big rumor bombshell here. And I'm just looking at the draft order right now. And you look at the top 5 teams. You got Jacksonville, Detroit, Houston, the Jets, and the Giants. They're pretty much are set at their quarterback situation. Like the Jags, you're not going to take one because obviously you have Trevor Lawrence. You got to give Trevor Lawrence a chance with the new head coach, Doug Peterson, the Super Bowl champion, Doug Peterson. So brings somewhat of a level of respect to Jacksonville, somewhat. And then you got Detroit and Motor City Dan Campbell. You got to trust Jared Goff. That's just a no-brainer. Houston, you got either Deshaun Watson if he somehow suddenly returns or Davis Mills, so you're set there. And then Zach Wilson with the Jets, you're set there. And then the Giants have already said that they're going to give Daniel Jones another chance. And you look at, I think with Brian Daboll there in New York, he's worked with Josh Allen, who is kind of the same boat as Daniel Jones. Now, obviously, they're nowhere near the talent level wise. But when you look at, a lot of people had some doubts of Josh Allen, like his first year, second year. They're like, okay, this guy, he could be something, but he's not there yet. But in his third year, once they got Stephon Diggs and Daboll became a great coordinator, he just took off. And with Daniel Jones, it's like, okay, this guy's going to be in his third year, almost fourth year. He has some solid weapons around him. Kenny Golladay, Darius Slayton. I think he still has Sterling Shepard. And you still have a respectable running back in Saquon Barkley.
That might be a stretch. Respectable might be a stretch, even.
Yeah, I mean, he might be the new street clothes because he gets injured too much. But you just look at the Giants and just say this is Daniel Jones' last chance. We thought it was going to be his last chance last year, but obviously we know how Joe Judge turned out. That was a disaster.
So now they're putting the blame on the head coach instead of the quarterback and saying, we'll give you one chance because we don't want to take a quarterback this year.
Yeah, and you also look at the QB class next year seems to be a lot better because for sure Bryce Young is going to be the head level for that class if he does decide to go out into the draft. So I just think teams like the Giants or the Texans or even Atlanta, who's drafting at number 8, could look at a QB not this year, but next year. So they're looking at Daniel Jones and just say, look, the QB class was so bad this year, we'd rather give you a second chance and give you an opportunity with Daboll than drafting a guy like Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett and just be like, okay, let's just see what happens from there. But it's gonna be unique. And I will say, I think if there's gonna be a team to draft a QB before Pittsburgh, I wouldn't be shocked if a team like Washington, the Washington Commanders, which got to be the most worst name I've ever seen, they're right there at 11. And if I'm Washington, I think you got a cards in your hands. And if you can't get a quarterback in free agency, if you can't be able to persuade to get trades for like the Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson, now I would say, why not take a chance on Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis? You have Taylor Heineke there. You know what Heineke is capable of. And you look at, if you draft a rookie guy behind him, you could basically tell Heineke, he's like, look, you have competition. If you win, you win. If you don't, we'll just throw in our rookie QB that we just drafted. So, like, if I had to pick a team, and don't get me wrong, Ethan, Pittsburgh is a great team who's looking for a quarterback because, to be honest, Mason Rudolph, Dwayne Haskins, Josh Dobbs, that ain't it. That's not the QB room if I'm Pittsburgh that I'm looking at. Because if I see that QB room just overall as a whole, I know Tom is a great coach, but that's going to take a lot of work to finish 500. The only reason why he finished 500 this year was because the defense stepped up and Ben Roethlisberger knows what he's doing because he's been in the league for 18 years. You put in a guy like Rudolph or Haskins in there, they're not going to win those clutch games that we saw Roethlisberger did towards the end of the season, whether that's against Baltimore or Cleveland. You put in those guys in there, they're just not going to get it done, plain and simple. And what I also like about the Senior Bowl is you kind of get to really see like what teams are going to be there and what teams are looking for. You look at it in past years, the main attention is the quarterback. But this year, like you mentioned earlier, Ethan, it's going to be a lot of the offensive linemen, a lot of the defense, just because it really isn't a need for some of these teams that are in the top of the draft. Like you look at the Giants, they got 2 picks inside the top 10, the 5th and the 7th. You're not going to take a QB with the 5th or 7th. If I'm the Giants, I would say, screw it. Take 2 offensive linemen, 5 and 7. One of them's going to hit, right?
You'd think this is the Giants, though.
Yeah, it is nice. But Dave Gettleman is no longer there, and Joe Judge isn't there. It's the Buffalo Giants, I like to call it, because they took the old, I think, assistant GM from the Bills and then the offensive coordinator. So it's no longer the New Jersey Giants or the New York Giants. It's the Buffalo Giants because they're trying to copy the Bills. And then another team also like the Jets, they have the 4th pick, which is their own, and the 10th pick, which is Seattle, which, my honest opinion, they got a fleece for Blitz Boy, aka Jamal Adams. I mean, that had to have been a terrible trade by Seattle. But then again, nobody foresaw Wilson getting hurt for 6 weeks. But that's just overall for this Senior Bowl. It's going to be good to see what teams look for.
Right, and in the Senior Bowl, you have the national team ended up beating the American team 20-10 yesterday. And really, like you're talking about the quarterbacks, I mean, Pickett, and I'm reading here, it's 2 drives of action, 6 of 6, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Only touchdown his team scored. Whereas the other quarterbacks, really, Desmond Ritter was the best quarterback in the game, seemingly, just by the box score, because he led his team on 2 different touchdown drives. Ritter's stock's moving up. And Ritter was already a 2nd round, maybe if you want to say early 3rd round, okay. But if I'm Ritter, I like where I'm heading and if there are more teams that needed a quarterback, you'd be a late 1st rounder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I mean, you just look at the teams like just the rest of the teams that are available, like 1 through 30 are pretty much set. You wouldn't see Desmond Ritter. I mean, if there's going to be a reach, I mean, Tampa Bay at 27 would be like the biggest reach of all. But
I mean, they got Kyle Trask though.
Exactly. Even that, like they still have Kyle Trask. So it's like, would you be willing to give Kyle Trask a chance?
I feel like you give him competition. Like if you're able, I don't know if they have a 3rd, but like if you have a 3rd, there's still a solid bunch of quarterbacks here. If Carson Strong, Desmond Ritter falls to the 3rd, I think Tampa should trade up and get him. I doubt they fall that far, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely see. But Desmond Ritter definitely is going to be a guy to look out for in round 2. You look at teams who have round 2, like, maybe look at the Atlanta Falcons if they have the 43rd pick. If Desmond Ritter is still there, Matt Ryan's going to be up there in age. Why not take a guy like Desmond Ritter? Let him learn from Matt Ryan because you're not getting rid of that contract. It's just impossible. You just can't do that. And if you have a guy like Desmond Ritter, he gets to learn from Matt Ryan a year or 2. and then bam, Ritter could take over with Kyle Pitts, and that's your new Matt Ryan to Tony Gonzalez duo.
I'm right now looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, and there's someone that impressed me in this draft. Is Las Vegas Raiders defense is pretty good, but I think that they could use a nice little defensive player on their line because they have two solid edge rushers. I think if you had Perrion Winfrey, the Oklahoma defensive lineman, who had an incredible game. I think he had like 2 sacks and 3 TFLs in this game. I think he had a couple more tackles too. Perrion Winfrey had a dominant game. I think he'd be perfect for that Raiders defense that already features the likes of Crosby and Nate Hobbs.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because when you look at the Raiders, the only thing that you really see a problem with is their defense. Their offense is solid. Is it the best offense? No, but it's not the worst offense. And they're kind of like right in the middle. Like their offense isn't going to lose them a game. I mean, granted, when I say that, Carr threw an interception against the Bengals in the wild card game, but besides that exception, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, you don't blame the Raiders' offense. It's mainly upon the Raiders' defense. And they have some talent, like you mentioned. You have Max Crosby there. You have Dobbs on one side. But you have guys who are very injury prone, like Jonathan Abrams. I mean, the guy, he's got talent, but he's always injured. He's made of glass. And if you do get a guy on the defensive side, it's going to work wonders. And what will be crazy to me is if the Raiders don't bring back Derek Carr. I think the Raiders, you have to bring back Carr. Like what other QB is going to work in Vegas besides Carr? Now, unless if you could find a way to get Wilson or Watson or somehow get Rodgers, go for it. But if you can't, what's your best other option besides Carr? Derek Carr is your guy, and he went 4-0 in overtime this season. He has to be the answer for Las Vegas. I think he proved himself worthy. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Raiders are going to do now that Mike Mayock is gone. And, they have a new GM in. I think it was Dave somebody from New England, and then Josh McDaniels as well. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of approach they're going to take. Whether it's this offseason, in March, going into this year's draft in April. It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of approach the Raiders are going to go with. But going defense is definitely going to the help. Now, I looked at a mock draft. I just pulled this up on screen. In fact, I'll share the screen for you just to see what I have. And according to Takeathon.com, their mock draft is supposedly the Raiders at 22 are going to take Jameson Williams. And I'll ask you this question, Ethan. Would that be a smart move for the Raiders if they were to take a Jameson Williams at 22?
Well, you move from one speedy Alabama receiver to another. Hopefully this one, if they were to take him, is slightly smarter.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope it's definitely slightly smarter, because if it isn't, then that would be a disaster. Yeah. And I also kind of want to throw out there, just looking at this mock draft overall in general. Is there anything that kind of stands out as a surprise to you? Because what kind of surprises me is if this mock draft has Derek Stingley Jr. at number 4. I don't see him going forward to the Jets. I think Stingley is probably going to be a mid-first round pick.
I could see him going 4. I feel like the Jets,
You think they would reach for him, even though he's only had one good season? Yeah,
I could definitely see the Jets doing that. I mean, I think that there are better corners out there. I'm curious to see, do they have Sauce Gardner going in the first round?
Sauce, let's see.
Ahmad Gardner, yep, right there, to the Vikings, number 12. That's something I think is interesting. I could see both of those two competing for it. I find it I definitely like where Tyler Linderbaum's going at number 10. I like it so far. I mean, seems like a good mock
Mm,
draft.
And then what's also I'm sorry to
Karloff,
interrupt, what also is kind of shocking to me is seeing Kenny Pickett go 6 to the Panthers. I personally I don't see Carolina taking a quarterback. I mean, because they already accepted Darnold's 5th year. Unless if you want to go the route of have him sit for a year, but there's no way you're letting Darnold sit after you just accepted his 5th year. If anything, you accept his 5th year, you let him play, and then if he has any sort of value, you trade him.
I'm not even sure. This is Sam Darnold. Yes, Joe Brady's offense didn't necessarily work. However,
But they didn't get much better hiring Ben McAdoo.
exactly. And it's not like he worked out in New York either. Seems to be this is Darnold's last chance as well as Daniel Jones. Because unless Darnold's happy being a backup, I'm not sure where the hell he's going to go. He's not the Teddy Bridgewater, Tyrod Taylor, that good veteran play that you'll get at quarterback for a team that's not going to compete but won't be dead last either. I think he's going to want the money, and I'm not sure if he'll get it. And I think he might be out of the league if he doesn't perform adequately this year.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the money there. This is Sam Darnold's last opportunity. I mean, you're talking Sam Darnold was so bad. They had to bring out the last legs of Cam Newton, who's pretty much finished. You know, he's a backup now. They got so bad. They're just like, let's just bring back Cam Newton, one of the greatest Panther quarterbacks in our franchise, just for his last leg. We don't care that he can't throw far. We don't care that he's old and washed. We just rather have him than you. Like that's when you know it's bad. And you could even make a case like this could be Matt Rule's last chance too. Because I mean, this Panthers owner doesn't mess around. I mean, he fired Brady midseason. He didn't wait till the end to move off him. He's just like, nah, you're gone now. So Rule's got to turn it around.
No matter who the quarterback is, a healthy McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson.
And then the respectable defense. I mean, one of the corners got hurt before the season. He's going to be healthy. Like, the Panthers have a good young up-and-coming team.
They do. They just need a quarterback. I'm not a fan of any quarterbacks in this class. what I'm doing is after the Super Bowl on my Twitter at Ethan_Carboni, go follow. I'm going to be doing my 5 players for each team for like their first, second, third, fourth, and fifth picks. Panthers, I'm not taking a quarterback in the first for sure. They need one, but
and you also look at the NFC South division. Now that Brady's retired, it's wide open. If Carolina can get the right quarterback, they could easily win the NFC South. I mean, you look at what's crazy to me is Atlanta may have the best chance to win the NFC South just because they have the most competent quarterback.
True. Jameis Winston.
If the Saints re-sign Jameis Winston, they could have the best chance. But if they don't, because you look at the Saints, we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Taysom Hill? Is it going to be Jameis Winston? If it is Jameis Winston, then I would say the Saints have a best chance. Because keep in mind, they were 5-2 before Winston got hurt. Before Winston got hurt, the Saints could have very easily made the playoffs. They had the capabilities to make the playoffs. I think if Jameis didn't get hurt, the Niners would have missed the playoffs. The Saints would have gotten in. Or because of tiebreaker, Philly would have missed and San Francisco would have gotten in. Either one of those. But the Saints would have been in as a 6 or a 7 seed if Jameis was healthy. And then you get Atlanta. Obviously, you got Matt Ryan. He's been there, done that. And then with Tampa Bay, you got Kyle Trask. But what if Kyle Trask isn't ready yet? Are you going to roll with the veteran Blaine Gabbert? Yeah, no thanks. I mean, unless if this Bucks defense could be formidable, that would be the only chance that the Bucks have. Let's see, and then after that, I think we just get to Carolina, and then Carolina's want to see, like you mentioned, Ethan. You got a healthy CMC, you got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, you got a young and hungry defense. If you get that quarterback correct, they could easily win the NFC South if they get the right quarterback. If they could get Deshaun Watson once his issues are all handled, or Russell Wilson or anybody like that, they could very easily win the NFC South.
Honestly, if they had Davis Mills last year, or if they have Davis Mills, the Davis Mills that nearly beat the Patriots on the Texans, that would be a fun team. The Panthers just are a quarterback away from contending in the NFC South.
Exactly, and the thing with Carolina is they could go a lot of different approaches. As you see in this mock draft, they could go the QB route at 6. If they trade for a quarterback before the draft, obviously we know that they either won't have their first round pick this year or in future years, but they have the quarterback set. Or they could easily draft an offensive lineman at 6, or just draft anybody on the defense to help improve at 6. Like for Carolina, you could go multiple ways. If you're really dead set on Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis or even somehow Desmond Ritter or Sam Howell, you draft them, but you let Sam Darnold know if you do not perform well, you will be pulled. If you have a bad game or 2 stretch, you will be pulled. You're getting a short leash. You've had plenty of opportunity, plenty of chances. If you don't succeed, you're getting pulled, because we'd rather see what rookie we have and see if he's capable. Because worst case scenario, what happens, Ethan? If your rookie quarterback doesn't look good, you get a top 5 pick, bam, you get another one and draft and Bryce Young or somebody who goes in the draft.
Right. I mean, I think if you're the Panthers, you use your 2nd, 3rd, or 4th on a quarterback. We've seen Dak as a 4th do incredible things. Obviously, not every quarterback drafted in the late rounds will do great. It's just, you don't necessarily need that first-round prospect. You just need someone that you've scouted, like your scouts have scouted the entire year and have loved. Because if you go with what the public wants, well, you might end up with a Kevin White situation.
Yeah, and that's a situation that you do not want.
Exactly.
And I will say, after the Senior Bowl, Ethan, if you're the Jaguars at number 1, do you go with Kayvon Thibodeau, or do you go with Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan? If you have the number 1 overall pick, who are you picking?
Thibodeau. I feel like the intangibles. I mean, Hutchinson had a great year. Hutchinson's a great player. It's just you're flipping a coin. One of those two, if not both, will be phenomenal players. So I'd say you probably have a 50-50 shot with both of them. Because, again, this is the Jags. Historically, the number 1 pick almost always has a success rate. You can't go wrong with either. At least historically, you're almost guaranteed for one of them to be good if they choose them.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that they turn out good, because the last thing that you would want if you're Jacksonville is you take a guy, Aiden Hutchinson, instead of Thibodeau, and then Thibodeau flourishes in Detroit, and then Hutchinson struggles. That would be the worst case scenario, because then you look back at it and just say, like, oh, what could have been? It's just like the same thing the Dolphins with Tua looking at Justin Herbert. The Dolphins could have easily had Justin Herbert at 5, but they decided to go with Tua route, and now they're looking at it like, man, what could have been? Like, if Justin Herbert was on the Miami Dolphins right now, they could have been a more respectable team. Maybe they could have made the playoffs with Justin Herbert, but instead with Tua, it's been very on and off.
for sure. Who are some people that went stock up or stock down for you? Like, who really rose to the occasion throughout the Senior Bowl, throughout the practices?
I think it has to be Malik Willis. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I watched college football a little bit, but I had no idea about Malik Willis. I didn't really. I thought Malik Willis was kind of a guy like, oh, you know what, might be a second or a third rounder. Maybe go to one of those teams late in the draft, maybe a day 2 guy. But with how well he's performed, this year and even in the Senior Bowl, he has an opportunity to slip into day 1. He could. Now, he won't be one of the top QBs. Like, you probably won't see him. Like, you might see a team take a chance on a Matt Corral, before Malik Willis. But Malik Willis could be a possibility. I know it's maybe crazy, but like a Lamar Jackson. Remember Lamar Jackson in 2018, he was one of the top QBs in that draft. But he somehow, some way slipped all the way down to 32 in the Ravens. Malik Willis could have that potential to where he may be one of the top QBs we're looking at, but they may not trust him and he may slip down, and some team late in the draft could luck out in drafting him. Like if there's a team like if he somehow slips to Tennessee at 26, I'd say why not? Why not take Malik Willis if you're Tennessee? Because you're not going anywhere with Tannehill. We saw what you did this year with Tannehill. You got the number 1 seed and you were one and done. You're going to be a one and done team. You ain't going anywhere. You even had King Henry return with 5 screws in his foot. And you could even crack 20 points against the Bungles. Now, they're obviously no longer the Bungles anymore because they made the Super Bowl. But still, you sack a QB 9 times. How do you lose? It's because you have Tannehill. And I think if you get a guy in Malik Willis at 26, I know in the mock draft you see them taking Trent McDuffie, the cornerback out of Washington. But if Malik Willis is still there at 26, why not? Why not take an opportunity on him? I mean, what's the worst case scenario? You just write out Tannehill's contract for a year or 2, and then you throw in a guy in Malik Willis. You're still going to win the AFC South if you're Tennessee, because the AFC South is so bad in rebuild mode. Houston and Jacksonville are competing with you. The only team that will really give you an edge is Indianapolis, and you swept Indy last year. So you're going to have no problem winning the AFC South. It's just if you want to get to the next contender step, you might have to look at Malik Willis and say maybe he could be that guy, because Tannehill is not it.
For sure. I mentioned before the defense is the one thing. Someone that's going to be a day 2 pick, I believe, Travis Jones, a defensive lineman from UConn. Now, I know you said you didn't watch football last year, much of it for college. UConn didn't win a single game, I do not believe. If they did, they won 1. He put up 8.5 sacks. And he's 6'4", about 325 pounds. From what I saw during the Senior Bowl, he was dominating all the offensive line, defensive line drills. He's going to be able to get to the quarterback. I think that any team that takes a shot on him, round 2, round 3, wherever he ends up going, he'll be a fun player to watch.
I think so as well.
Who else for you? We'll just start rattling off people at this point, because I think there's been so many stock up people, and then we'll go into the people that fell. Probably, hopefully, 5 to 10 minutes from now. If we can think of so many more stock up, I'd love to hear them.
Man, I would say one of the stock up players that I would like to see is the defensive tackle Devon Watt out of Georgia. I think the key is defense is going to be key in this draft. I think Devon Watt is going to be a good defensive tackle for some of these teams. I mean, you just look at this draft overall. If you're Washington, if you don't like the QB options, why not take a guy in Devontae Watt out of Georgia? Why not just improve that defensive front that you already have? You know, you already have Chase Young, you already have Montez Sweat, you already have Payne up on the front. Why not add a guy in Devontae Watt? You know, just improve the defensive front and just overall, any guy on the defense, I would say has to be a stock up because you run me the score, you think it was 20-10. That's almost like defensively. I mean, we look at like scoring 20 points in the NFL, like we now kind of look at that and just say, yeah, it was good defense. You know, if you could hold the offense to 20 points, you did a good job. And then on the other side, you hold them to 10 points. That's when you know you did a superb job. Like you did phenomenal holding a team to 10 points. So I think anybody on the defensive side, even if it's a guy in Derek Stingley who hasn't even played a full healthy season in 2 years, you still take an opportunity because he has that potential because of how great he was his first year as a freshman when he had 6 interceptions and he was a lockdown corner, one of the tops in the nation. You know, I think the stock up will have to be anybody on the defense. You have to give the stock rise because defense is going to go off the board quick because there aren't as many prominent QBs as in years past, whether it's highlighted by a Trevor Lawrence or, you know, a Baker Mayfield drafted first or a Kyler Murray. Just that overall. Defense has to be the rising stock in this year's draft.
Well, and you just took about half the players, if not more, that I was going to say. So I'm going to move into, let's see. Here's my list. All right. Kahil Shakur, a wide receiver for Boise State. So lately, the slot wide receiver has been getting a lot of credit. You have Cooper Kupp, who just had damn near one of the best seasons a wide receiver has ever had.
Yeah, he had the second most receiving yards in NFL history.
Incredible. And he's coming off, I believe it's 2-time All-Mountain West award teams. Obviously, when people think of the Mountain West, you're not necessarily watching Mountain West football unless you enjoy just football in general or you're just a huge Mountain West fan or a fan of one of those teams. But Boise State's a team that everyone knows, whether it be for their blue field or success over the past 2 decades. He's had a very good year. And he at the Senior Bowl, I'm reading an article right now from 247 Sports. The 2-time All-Mountain West pick looks ready-made NFL slot receiver. He reminds me a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown, who led the Lions in receiving as a rookie in 2021 after being drafted in the 4th round. Kahil Shakur could very well end up surprising many people and jumping up boards because the slot receiver is very important in today's game because if it was that easy to put your best wide receiver in the slot, every team would be doing it. They're not. We're not seeing Devontae Adams as a slot receiver. We're not seeing Mike Evans line up as a slot receiver.
Exactly. Like slot receiver is going to have to be key for multiple teams. I mean, just for example, my Green Bay Packers, we only have one reliable receiver, and that's Devontae Adams. Everybody else is no names. Yeah, Alan Lazard, I like to call him Lizard. You know, he's solid, all right. You know, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, when he's healthy, he's all right. But you need to have a solidified number 2 or solidified slot. Our solidified slot in the past was Randall Cobb. But Randall Cobb in his prime was great in the slot. He was phenomenal as a slot receiver. Obviously, he's older now, isn't the same, but you know, you have to find multiple weapons. I mean, look at both teams that are in the Super Bowl this year, Ethan. They not only have one reliable receiver, they have multiple guys. For Cincinnati, you have Jamar Chase, and if Jamar Chase is covered, you got T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Boom, boom. For the Los Angeles Rams, if Cooper Kupp is locked up, boom, you got Odell Beckham Jr. and then Van Jefferson right there following up. Boom, boom. To be a solid team and a solid offense, you have to have multiple weapons, and getting a slot receiver has to be keys for teams to look forward to. Like even looking at a team like a Green Bay Packers or just anybody that's missing a solid number 2 or slot. You have to cover it early, because if you don't cover it early, then you're going to miss out on a lot. Because one thing is for certain, I'm not sure if this will happen, but if somehow, some way, Jameson Williams falls to 28, Green Bay better fucking take him. We better draft. I better see Jameson Williams being taken. If somehow, some way, he falls to Green Bay at 28, I better see it. Because if I don't see Jameson Williams taken at 28, I don't know what it'll do. Now, obviously, I'm seeing on this mock draft, they draft the receiver Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. I like us to get another weapon. But if Jameson Williams is there at 28, we better take him at 28. Because if we don't take him at 28, then what are we doing? What are we doing?
Already looks like Rodgers might be gone to retirement, although at this point, I doubt it. It was announced earlier that the Packers don't want to trade him. Like they've announced that publicly and privately. So
here's what I will say about that. I think the way how Rodgers played last game against San Francisco, I don't think you can retire off that note. You can't retire your final game scoring only 10 points. That's just not competitive nature. Like you just can't do that. Like you don't see Brady retiring after a performance like that. Like Brady's the kind of guy to where like if he has a performance like that, I want to bounce back next year and play better. Like his final game in New England against the Tennessee Titans. You knew he wasn't going to retire after that. You knew like this is the GOAT Tom Brady. He's not going out like that. And what does he do the next 2 years? He goes to Tampa, bringing him a Super Bowl. And in his final game, he comes back from down 27-3 to tie it. Now, you lost off an eventual field goal, but you can live at peace knowing that, hey, you know what? I came back down 24. I tied the game. Todd Bowles sold, deciding to go all-out blitz, leaving one-on-one with Cooper Kupp. There's nothing I could do. For Aaron Rodgers, you can't retire. You just can't. One, the NFC quarterback room is very slim. I mean, the only competitive QBs in the NFC, besides Aaron Rodgers if he stays, is Matthew Stafford, maybe Russell Wilson if he stays in Seattle, Kyler Murray.
2.5. I'll give him 2.5.
2.5.
A quarter because of his height and a quarter because they'll make questionable decisions.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So there's Rodgers, there's Stafford, there's Murray, there's Russell Wilson if he stays in Seattle, and then Matt Ryan just because he's respectable.
Not after last season.
You look at it. There's only 4 to 5. If you do go to the gauntlet in the AFC. You really mean to tell me you'd rather play Mahomes and Herbert twice a year, possibly 3 in the playoffs? Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, just in the AFC alone, instead of in the NFC when you got a guaranteed division home game? Guaranteed. If Rodgers stays in the NFC North, that's a guaranteed division win for us. I don't care that Minnesota, is in their situation. I don't care that Chicago has a new head coach, new GM, and have Justin Fields. If Rodgers is still in the NFC North, they're winning that division easily. We might split with the Vikings, maybe split the Bears, might sweep them, but who knows?
I mean, the Lions split y'all, didn't they?
That was week 18. But technically, yes, they did split. If you want to be technical, yes, they did. But the scenarios, we already had the 1 seed locked up, and we only played the starters for maybe a quarter and a half. But for the most part, all I'm saying is if you're Rodgers, you can't retire off that bad game. You just can't. You can't retire only scoring 10 points at home against your rival in the 49ers. You just can't go out like that. You can't. And if you go to the AFC, you're going to have a tough competition. You might not even have a home playoff game. You might have to go on the road every single game. So that's just from that standpoint overall. You know, if Rodgers does decide to retire, it's his own decision. But he better be aware that, you know, his legacy ain't going to be the same if he retires. You know, you're not going to classify him under Brady and Manning or even Breeze. You can't do that after this game. You just can't. Because the only records that Rodgers has is best like QBR and then touchdown to interception ratio. You know, you don't see him leading all-time yards or touchdowns or wins. It's just clean football. And that's it. You can't be an all-time great QB and only lead in QBR and touchdown to interception ratio. You just can't. You have to add another ring to get your legacy higher. Because that's where he's standing right now. That's his grand standing. You know, yes, Drew Brees may have only had one ring. But at least Drew Brees had the all-time passing yards record at a point in time and close to touchdowns record as well. Like, he was getting put in numbers.
All right. Want to go into one more pick each for good, and then we'll go into bad after.
I mean, I'm personally down for whatever. I mean, you could just throw out who we think is going to go in, like, just the overall mock draft. Like, if you have any other mock drafts, you could share the screen, and I'd be okay with that.
I'm looking at more so when I think Senior Bowl. Obviously, guys that get into the first round, I like looking at the guys that are undrafted to day 3 picks and end up actually growing. Like Greg Dolcich, tight end from UCLA, had a great year. He's regarded as the best tight end in the draft. In school, I pull up Senior Bowl. I end up seeing tight ends running routes. Greg Dolcich. He very smooth as butter. I don't know who to compare him to, but like he'll get past linebackers. He'll be able to power over safeties, and you might have to put like a strong corner on Dolcich to like man him up. He's going to be a threat in the NFL, and he is definitely the best tight end, meaning that he'll be a second-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe third.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also kind of look at it. You also have to kind of look at the coaches that are in the Senior Bowl. It's the Jets staff and the Lions staff. And you look at where they're both situated. Lions are at 2, and the Jets are at 4 and 10. I look at the Senior Bowl, like you mentioned, Ethan. This is kind of the opportunity to where we see guys who are either day 2 or day 3 try to elevate their status to become from a day 2 to a day 1 or a day 3 to a day 2. You know, either one of those. Because you know for sure you're not going to see a guy like a Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson. Like, you know they're going to be a day 1 guy. You already know this. Like, why would they, 1, risk injury, and 2, hurt their draft stock? You know, I will say another thing to look forward to after the Senior Bowl is the Combine. You know, the Combine is to where we could also see some players make a name. I mean, why do you think a former receiver in the Bengals, I think now in the Giants, John Ross, made his name? He broke the Combine 40-yard dash record. You know, he broke Chris Johnson's, I think it was 4.23, and he got a 4.22.
Something like that, yeah.
That was his main staple. That's why Cincinnati reached on him. And he's never been the same since. He's not a good receiver because all he's known is for speed. You know, when you're a receiver, you can't just be classified as speed. You know, like at least Tyreek Hill, yeah, he's known for speed, but he can do other stuff besides speed as well. He's a good route runner. He can make great catches, and he could burn you with the speed. With John Ross, all he was known for was just speed and nothing else. Like you can't be that talented in the NFL and only just rely on just your speed. Because defense are going to pick up on it. It's like, all right, all he's known is for speed. Just put one guy up in front to stop him, slow him down. Then another guy in the back, and then you'll be good. Plain and simple.
Exactly.
And then I also want to say for the Senior Bowl, I also want to see like when the other teams are there with their new coaching staffs. I mean, just to like look at their approach, like with Denver with Nathaniel Hackett, or the Giants with Brian Daboll, or the Raiders with Josh McDaniels. I'm interested to see like after all the Senior Bowl, after all the players play, whether they improve their draft stock or lower the draft stock, just to see what kind of approach that they take with their teams. Because the Raiders could very well be looking at the QB room and just say, what if we can't get Derek Carr, if he doesn't want to re-sign with Las Vegas, we have to look at one of these quarterbacks because one of these QBs is going to fall to us. Because you look at where the Raiders are in this draft, they're at 22. Somebody is going to fall in the QB, whether that's Pickett or Willis or Corral or Howell. Somebody is going to fall to them at 22. And if they can't get Derek Carr or just other QBs as a whole, they're going to have to look at those rookie guys and just say, hey, this might have to be our guy.
Hey, Matt. While you were talking, I was reading an article on NFL.com. So I didn't watch the Senior Bowl because I had another commitment, but the punters put on a show supposedly. So I'm going to ask you, over under 1.5 punters drafted?
I'm going to say over.
Because we saw Presley something, I think Harvin, get drafted to the Steelers. We saw Evan McPherson get drafted by the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm gonna say at least over 1.5. And I will say for the Derek Carr news, I was wrong. He still has one more year left with the Raiders. He has a base salary of about almost $20 million. But that's just his overall cap hit. He has no dead cap, so that's the Raiders have his rights just for this year. If they want to move off him, they can. But if they don't want to, he could stay another year. But that's just the Raiders' mindset. Looking at like if they do want to move off from Carr, which I don't think they should. But if they do, they got to focus on those quarterbacks.
For sure. What about stock down? Who might have just slightly choked it?
Who might have slightly choked it? I would just have to say just that anybody on the offense. I mean, only scoring 20 points or 10 points, that's not really a good look. I mean, we know like some of the top tier offensive talents aren't going to be there on just overall at the Senior Bowl. Like you aren't going to really see a guy like a Garrett Wilson or a Drake London or even a Jameson Williams because he's hurt at the Senior Bowl. Or even a guy like a Chris Alave out of Ohio State. You're not really going to see kind of those guys on the Senior Bowl. So I just think just overall as a whole, just anybody on the offense, it's just their stock slightly went down. I really wouldn't say, I mean, you could narrow like a couple players if you want, but I just think overall, just for the offense, it slightly dipped just because of how talented these defensive products are. Like the defense in this year's draft is very talented. I mean, you got guys like Thibodeau, you got Hutchinson, you got Stingley Jr., you even got the big defensive tackle out of Georgia coming out of the draft. Like you got a lot of defensive talent coming out of this draft. Like if you had to do a percentage wise for the draft, you could probably say like talent wise, it'll probably be like 65 defense, 35 offense. Just from a talent perspective, there's still good offensive players, like I mentioned, but your first option after this Senior Bowl is probably going to be looking at the defense first and then offense second.
For sure. And I know I think I mentioned his name, Carson Strong. So He threw an interception. He fumbled back-to-back series. He did not look good. He looked shaken up a bit. Big moment for him. He needed to do good. Didn't. Carson Strong's a quarterback that I liked in the beginning of the year. I still like him a bit. If he falls into the third round somehow, he's probably second round talent. But if he goes to the third round talent, whatever, I very well think that we're going to be seeing a team take him, and they're going to be very ecstatic about that pick.
Do you think Carson Strong has the capabilities to be like a Davis Mills this year? Because a lot of people didn't really know Davis Mills, but then you look at his stats compared to all the other rookie quarterbacks, and he has, I think, either the best or the second best. Like, I think the top two quarterbacks, like stat wise, was Mac Jones and Davis Mills. Do you think Carson Strong has that potential to where he may not be a big name, he may not be a Matt Corral or Kenny Pickett or Sam Howell, but he does have the potential to put up better stats than those quarterbacks in his first year when given the opportunity?
I mean, for sure. Here's the thing. I think that interception was definitely a fluke. During his 2021, he averages 4.5 passing touchdowns to every interception. He threw for nearly 4,200 yards. Yes, this is in the Mountain West, and you can make the argument that it's not against top-tier competition. Even if you were to take away 25% of his touchdowns, you're taking away 9 of them. So 36 minus 9, you got 27. If you're adding a quarter of you're adding another quarter of the interceptions, that's still 2.7 touchdowns to every pick. Still great. I think what you want for a quarterback is you want it to be 2-to-1 touchdown to INT ratio. Obviously, you want less, but realistically, 2-to-1 ain't bad. So, I think we might be seeing a Carson Strong end up being the best quarterback in this class potentially.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at this big board, which I will share the screen for a hot second. Pull that up. And along here, you see Carson Strong. He could be like the 4th or the 5th QB, taken in this draft. Oh, you got guys like a Pickett or a Corral or Willis or Howell, but Carson Strong, could be that next guy. And some people may even say he has better potential than Desmond Ritter. Would you agree with that statement? If you had a draft, say this is round 2 or round 3, if you had the option to pick either Carson Strong or Desmond Ritter, who would you pick and why?
Depends which team I'm on, to be honest, because if I'm looking at it in a sense of, hey, I need to play it safe, Desmond Ritter on paper by name, he's the safer option. If your job's on the line, you take Ritter. If you have a quarterback there for another 2 years and hey, we might move on from him next year. If you're in the Panthers situation, second round, Carson Strong's not a bad person to choose at all.
Yeah, because I would say I'm looking at it in round 2. There are some teams I look at, if you're like Minnesota or Indianapolis or even the Saints. I mean, even in the mock draft I'm looking at round 2, they have Carson Strong at pick 49 going to the Saints. If the Saints decide not to bring back Jameis Winston, which I think would be a terrible decision, I think you got to bring back Winston just because you were 5-2 with him. You were literally pushing the Bucs in that NFC South division. It would be dumb of you to not bring back Jameis, especially because just Taysom Hill isn't a quarterback. He is a Swiss Army knife, just plain and simple. That's just the kind of guy that he is, and it's no knock to him. He's a gifted player. He just isn't a guy that you can rely on as being a regular quarterback. He's a guy that you could rely on being other things. He could be your running back. He could be your tight end, receiver, special teams guy. You just can't rely on him being a quarterback. And I think, and I even think as well, when you do get to a round 2, you do have to look at guys like a Carson Strong or a Desmond Ritter, and they definitely have a potential to be that. And, and if you're in the round 2, look at teams like the Broncos or Washington, or even if you want Cleveland, Indianapolis, New Orleans, or Pittsburgh. Those could very well be teams that you could look at for a quarterback perspective of, hey, if these guys are still there, if a Desmond Ritter or a Carson Strong or somehow Sam Howell slip, why not take those guys? Why not take an opportunity? Because what more do you have to lose? I know it's a long shot for me saying Seattle. I only say Seattle just for a simple fact of if they trade Russell Wilson. But just for the other teams, if you're Minnesota, you have Kirk Cousins. Well, never mind, scratch Minnesota. If you're Washington or Atlanta, what do you have to lose? You have nothing. I mean, you get, if you're the Falcons, you're stuck with old man Ryan. You're just stuck, and there isn't anything that you could do. And I definitely appreciate you guys listening to this. But it's just overall round 2 and round 3. This is where you're going to really see what teams are going to be daring enough to reach for a quarterback or just reach for any position in general. I know you may even see for first round talent, you may even see some reaches as well. Like in one mock draft, I see Kenny Pickett going at 6 to Carolina. I think that would be a reach. I don't see Carolina reaching at 6 to take a quarterback. But I mean, if they do, there is opportunity. I just don't see it. I would rather see Carolina at 6 draft either a weapon like a Chris Alave or a receiver, or get somebody for the offensive line. And just overall, it's going to be exciting to see who's going to reach. And Ethan, I was just mentioning while you were gone, in round 2 or round 3, this is going to be a time to where you can really see people reaching. Like I threw out teams in round 2, taking a chance on Desmond Ritter or Carson Strong. Why not? If you're Indianapolis or New Orleans or Pittsburgh in round 2, why not take an opportunity on those guys? What more do you have to lose? You could get a for sure right now talent in round 1, and then you get a future guy in round 2.
Are you suggesting taking 2 quarterbacks?
No, I'm not suggesting taking 2 quarterbacks. I'm saying if you're a team like a Pittsburgh, draft somebody on the line at 20, and then in round 2, you draft a guy like a Carson Strong or a Desmond Ritter if they're still available at round 2. I'm just saying, like for those teams, in round 1, you take care of an immediate need, not a quarterback need.
Oh yeah, well yeah, of course.
But then in round 2, if you see a guy like a Carson Strong or Sam Howell, Malik Willis, or Desmond Ritter still there, just take them. Why not? What do you have to lose? If you're the Saints, and I personally think if I'm the Saints, watch out for a QB round 2 for New Orleans. Because even if you do bring back Jameis Winston for a year or 2, do you really believe Jameis Winston could be a franchise guy for the Saints? It could be, but it's kind of long. He kind of reminds me of a better version of Jimmy Garoppolo. A kind of a guy who you could see as like a stable year or 2 guy. He's not going to be your future. Your future is Trey Lance. Example, 49ers. For the Saints, you bring back Jameis for this year, and you draft either Desmond Ritter or Carson Strong. You let Jameis play for the year, because you know the potential. When he's healthy, you're 5-2, your first 7 games, and you may make the playoffs. But then following the next year, you let Jameis Winston get his money because he could help improve his stock and get paid. And then you roll in a guy like a stronger Ritter, a young rookie guy going to his first year, and bam, you got your next franchise quarterback.
I like it.
Maybe I should be a GM for the Saints. Now I don't know how I would get this team out of a $71 million cap crunch. But if Saints, if you need me to draft people, I'm there. I'll try to bring the city of New Orleans some talent because give me some draft pieces. I could help with that.
Hey man, I forget. What are you majoring in?
Electronic media.
Yeah. You see, from everything I've started to understand, you gotta go into either scouting, meaning that you have to start very, very low on like a college coach, and then you gotta eventually become good at that, and then work your way up into NBA team, NFL team, and then from there, the scouting department, you can work. But usually, if you're that good of a scout / offensive / coach for college, you can become a coach. So you have to go through that entire pain of getting paid practically nothing to coach a Division III or NAIA school, or you could go into finance, and then you can become a GM through that if you're that good at like marketing the contracts to an owner's liking.
Well, then let's hope I can figure out some finances. But scouting wise, I can be pretty good in scouting. I could maybe find someone of talent. I mean, you just got to watch film. Be very observant of your team needs.
I don't even think it's necessarily watching film. I think it's more so the eye test, because you can watch film on someone all day. I can guarantee you people watch film on John Ross. The Bengals loved him. We're in an era where it's not the 1980s and it's, okay, only eye test. You need film throughout every game. You have the Senior Bowl, you have the Combine, you have everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to throw in this next question. We kind of figure who's going to be the main QB being taken. If you were to look at either like a running back or here, you know what? Let's go with this. Let's go with the receiver. Which receiver do you think will be first taken off the board? I know the front runner could be guys like a Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams, Drake London, or Chris Alave. But if you had to pick one player you would draft first, you're a team that needs a receiver in the first round. Which receiver would you take?
Depends where am I drafting, because if we're saying no receiver goes top 15,
let's say you are the Cleveland Browns at pick number 13.
Oh, Drake London, high upside, incredible pick. Obviously, Garrett Wilson's incredible. If you want someone, well, actually, no. If I'm Cleveland, you gotta go Garrett Wilson just because he's from Ohio State. But if I'm not going with he's from Ohio State thing, I love Drake London. I think Drake London's a phenomenal player. And he has all the intangibles, and he has the body he's built. I think that we could very much see Drake London being the best receiver in the past decade from any wide receiver class. And yes, that includes Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson.
Well, yeah, because I was going to say Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, they've set the standard for receivers being drafted, making an immediate impact. And I'm going to go a little differently. I would say Chris Olave. The reason why I would say Chris Olave is just for the simple fact of he's got great talent. He could be a potential guy like you mentioned, Ethan, about Drake London. Chris Olave could be that same guy to where he can make an immediate impact, and that's kind of what you want out of these receivers. Out of these receivers, you want them to make an immediate impact right away and right now. Like you threw in perfect examples, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Ever since they both came into the league, Justin Jefferson last year, Jamar Chase this year, they have both made immediate impacts to their teams. I mean, Justin Jefferson has become the number one receiver in Minnesota, and he's only in year 2. Jamar Chase has become the number one option in Cincinnati, He helped the Bengals go to the Super Bowl in just his rookie year. In his rookie year alone, the Cincinnati Bengals turned into a team that won 2 to 4 games, and we questioned that draft choice to winning 10 games and they're in Super Bowl, and we're just be like, hey, you know what? He shut my mouth because that was the right choice.
For sure. And I'm personally interested in the safeties this year, just because there's one from Illinois that I loved watching all year. He's one of the lone bright spots. It's really tough to be an Illinois fan for football. Basketball, not so much, but I'm more of a football person. So watching football, kind of hard, although he had, I think it was like 6 picks this year or something like that. Incredible ball hawk, can play in the box if he needs to. Great all-around player. He's, 6'1", right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 6'1", 200 pounds.
Yeah, good. He's built to be a safety. And Jalen Price, I know from Baylor, his stock skyrocketed at the combine. Not combine, at the Senior Bowl. So we'll see. And obviously Kyle Hamilton, Daxton Hill. Wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Price jumps the Brisker climb, though. Kind of. There's just so many options. Like out of these 6, Hamilton's the clear one and Hill's the clear 2, but the next 4, we might see some movement.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. We might see some movement as well. And you also like just with both these teams, like you look at, Lewis, what is it, Sign or Kine?
I'm not sure.
All right, well, I'm going with Sign because it starts with C. You look at, he helped Georgia lead to a national championship. Who knows? Maybe teams may look at that. And then with Jaquan Brisker, Penn State, they had a solid year. Jalen Petre had a solid year at Baylor, helps lead Baylor to a Sugar Bowl. So they may look at that standpoint, but I think personally, if you're scouting players, you have to look at just their talent. You can't just look at the team and just say, oh, he was on Georgia, they won a national championship, I got to go him. No. You got to look at the player's talent as a whole because like you mentioned, Ethan, there could be this guy in Kirby Joseph from Illinois. They may have not a good talent, but he could be the 3rd best safety in the draft. And if you're a scout expert and you just decide, oh, you know what, I'm going to take this guy, Lewis Sign, out of Georgia because he'll lead a national championship, and it turns out that Kirby Joseph was a better talent guy, that's not going to be a good look.
They're also 2 different positions because Sign's more of a in-the-box safety, Joseph's more of a ball hawk. So, or you could get both of them.
Yeah, why not? If you get one, have both. The only situation where that cannot apply is at a quarterback.
Or center or running back.
Yeah, or center or running back. But you're not going to draft a QB in round 1 and then 1 in round 5. That's not going to work. If you're going to draft one in round 1, give them a veteran backup. Or just have a veteran start and have the rookie backup. There's no in between. You can't draft even the same thing like you mentioned with running backs. If you draft a round 1 running back, keep that round 1 running back. You're not going to draft another running back in round 4 or round 5. That's just not going to work. I mean, unless if your scheme is run heavy, that's the only reason I'd see it. But other than that, there's just no reason for it.
Honestly, we're in a situation right now in today's era where I'm not taking a single, speaking of running backs, if you want to flip your screen to that, I'm not taking a single running back before the 2nd round. I loved Isaiah Spiller coming into the year, and I love that he's running back 1 according to this site. I do not believe that any running back is worth a pick that's a day 2 pick or above. I think all running backs are 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks.
Mm-hmm. And even looking at the running backs, I know he's the third guy, but Kenneth Walker the third could be the best option at running back. I mean, looking at the kind of year he had at Michigan State, he had a great year at Michigan State, helped to lead them to a Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And you are correct. I wouldn't see these guys first round or maybe even round 2. I mean, if you were to say round 2, it might have to be late round 2. Maybe to a team. Let's see. Maybe like a Buffalo Bills team at like 57 or just overall there, but that's like the mid to late second round pick. That would be the only time I would see a running back being taken. I mean, for this mock draft, the first RB is taken at 43 in Atlanta, and that's Isaiah Spiller out of A&M. So that's like mid second round pick. I think that's correct. It would be dumb for a team to reach for a first round running back. Like it's even the same thing I mentioned about quarterbacks. This year for a running back class isn't as strong. In years past, you see guys like Christian McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook in the same draft. You see guys even like a Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs, Christian McCaffrey, and then Saquon Barkley as well. Then even last year, guys you saw like a Najee Harris who you knew was going to be a first round talent. These running backs, you don't know if they're first round talent. And the one thing that you don't want is to reach for a running back. Plenty of teams have learned their mistakes, whether that's reaching for a running back at number 2, example, New York Giants, or paying a running back, example, Panthers and Giants again. So it's like with the running back, you better get it right in round 2 or round 3, because if you reach for him in round 1 and he fails, boy, oh boy, is that going to be a bad look.
You see, you're going more on the line of this class. I was saying...
Well, I'm saying just overall, whether it's this class or in previous classes.
I don't believe taking a running back at all in the first 2 days.
You don't even think like mid to late second round?
Well, here's my thing. Are they going to help you win a Super Bowl? Like, when's the last time that we've seen a superstar running back on a team that wins a Super Bowl?
I mean, let's see. Maybe Jerome Bettis in 06 against the Steelers, but yeah, you're right. It's a while.
Look at the last 10 Super Bowl winners. All right. Let's just think about this.
Yeah,
really.
So you got the last 10 from 45 to 55.
All right, so you got Tampa winning. Yeah, what star? No star running back there. Kansas City winning. New England, Philadelphia, New England, Denver, New England, Seattle. Okay, that Seattle team.
Seattle was based off of Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch.
I'm gonna look up 2014 Seattle Seahawks stats though, because that's gonna depend a lot.
I think they were more based on the defense of Legion of Boom than Marshawn Lynch.
They definitely were. I mean, if I look at their rushing offense, I mean, all right, that's fair. Marshawn Lynch, 2014, star running back.
Yeah, and then the Ravens, if you want, maybe Ray Rice, but that's pretty much the Ravens defense.
He wasn't a star, though. That's the thing. Mm. And I'll agree on the fact that, you know what? Seattle, they carried Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson. They carried the offense. Marshawn Lynch definitely had a thing. All right, let's keep going back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the Ravens.
Back to the 06.
And then if you want, before you go back to 06, Ravens didn't really have a star running back. The Giants was more of a two-head running back in Ahmad Bradshaw and Brandon Jacobs. And then for Green Bay, their running back tree in 45 was, I think, just James Starks and Ryan Grant. And that's about it. We were morely based upon the surge of Aaron Rodgers in the offense and then Charles Woodson in the defense.
Exactly. And we're definitely seeing it be like, I'm really only seeing beast mode, Bettis. I'm going all the way back. I mean,
Terrell Davis in the 90s. I think that might be the last running back.
I mean, you could go back to St. Louis when they won. I mean, Marshawn Falk.
That was just the whole offense.
That was the whole offense.
It wasn't just Marshall Falk.
I'll also give him the credit just because it's like, hey, They're not winning a Super Bowl with. You're not winning a Super Bowl with the running back being the main thing about your offense. He was a good chunk of it.
Yeah, one thing you do want though is you do want your running back to contribute. You can't win without a run game. You
Well,
got to
right.
have some sort of run game. And now it doesn't have to be like the 49ers where they run heavy or the Ravens. But you got to have at least one respectable back, at least one.
Or if not a respectable back, you need enough. You need 2 or 3 running backs that they all have a system. One can be your pass blocker, one can be your catcher, and one can run the ball outside the tackles when you need it.
Exactly. Like the key is to have two running backs. You got to have, like you mentioned, a bulldozer back and a guy who could help receive catch passes. A perfect example would be when I watched the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Jones, he's our perfect catching running back, a guy that can use to run. And then A.J. Dillon is like our bulldozer back that you can use for short yardage situations. If you have that kind of tree working, then you have good success.
Agreed.
And I will say one of the last things, an important part to any offense has to be the offensive lineman. We've seen a lot of teams draft linemen and reach. Example, the Raiders with Alex Leatherwood. And we've seen teams get perfectly gifted with offensive linemen, whether that's the Buccaneers last year with Tristan Wirfs or the Chargers, I think, with Slater. A lot of teams get perfectly gifted, drafted linemen, but you also get some reaches. If you're a team, Ethan, say if you're in the top 3, if you're the Jaguars, the Lions, or the Texans, or the Jets, or even the Giants in the top 5, out of these offensive linemen that you see here, which one would you take?
Evan Neal. He's easily the most sound prospect. He's the safest option. If you're in the top 3, you're there for a reason. Top 2 picks, you're going defense. If you go Evan Neal, I personally think Hutchinson should go 3rd, but I think it's going to be the 2 defense going 1 and 2 with Hutchinson.
Yeah, I could see that. I see Jacksonville they should go with either Thibodeau or Neal. I don't think they should touch Hutchinson. I know this mock draft says Aiden Hutchinson going first. But I just think you got to go with either Thibodeau, who's gifted at Oregon. Like, he had all of his years at Oregon were solid. He was phenomenal every year. This was kind of the first year we heard of Hutchinson. You know what I mean? Like if Hutchinson would have declared last year, what round do you think he would have gone?
4th. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if he was able to be honest. I don't like.
Well, if he was eligible to go last year, where do you think he would have been drafted?
That's tough for me. I mean, I'm trying to look at his stats. So give me a quick. Well, seeing as the year before that he got hurt, so not at all. If you want to assume after his sophomore year, undrafted because he only got 3.5 sacks. We'll see if this is a 1-year wonder or if he really developed. Although he did force 3 fumbles that sophomore year, so he's able to do good when he's on the field.
Exactly. So it's one of those to where, would you rather have a guy in Hutchinson who had one good year, or would you rather have a guy in Kayvon Thibodeau who has had consistency year in and year out with Oregon and has been, phenomenal almost every year he's played? And my dad saying, O-line, the most important. Absolutely, the offensive line is the most important. And I think you are correct as well, Ethan. Evan Neal has to be the guy you have to take if you're offensive lineman. And I will say with Jacksonville, it depends on the approach that they go. They could either go the offensive line approach and help protect Trevor Lawrence, help improve the run game with either James Robinson or Travis Etienne. Or they could pair up and have a good edge rusher right next to Josh Allen. Some people say the better Josh Allen because we saw what happened when they played the Bills. Josh Allen sacked Josh Allen and intercepted Josh Allen and did everything to Josh Allen. But, it all depends. Now, one thing I will say is if you're the Houston Texans, you got to be thrilled at the third pick because you're either going to get Thibodeau or Hutchinson if they fall, or you're going to get the top tier prospect of lineman in Evan Neal.
I mean, you can't go wrong unless you take Hutchinson, in my opinion. But
here's what I will say: if Hutchinson is there at 3 and you're the Texans, you better take an offensive lineman. Don't take Hutchinson at 3.
Well, here's the thing: what offensive lineman are you talking? Are you talking Ikem Ekwonu, or are you talking Evan Neal? If Evan Neal's there at 3, obviously take Evan Neal. But Aiden Hutchinson would be a great piece for that Texans defense.
Well, if I'm saying for the Texans, you just need anybody. You just need somebody. Whether that's to help improve the defense or the offense, you need somebody to help improve this team.
For sure.
Yeah. And then is there anything else that what? One last thing that we'll add on before we end this stream. Let's look at another key part, this time to a defense. The cornerback position. We know Derek Stingley is the top-rated corner, but he's had 2 iffy years ever since his breakout freshman season with LSU, helping them win the national championship with Joe Burrow and company. Do you still see Derek Stingley, Ethan, as the first cornerback to be taken off the board?
For sure. Just that 1 year alone definitely will get him there. Obviously, there's injury concerns, and what he might have been a top 3 pick or top 5 pick, he should still be a top 10 pick. It's just a matter of which team's going to take him. And if he doesn't pan out due to injuries, how bad is that going to make that team look?
I think with that team, I wouldn't say it would be somewhat of a bad look because you knew the talent was there. It wouldn't be a reach. If you reach for something like the Raiders with Clelin Ferrell at number 4, that was a ridiculous reach. And when he obviously doesn't pan out, you just say, I told you so. When you draft Derek Stingley inside the top 10, if he doesn't pan out due to injury, just kind of like you know what? There's nothing we could do here. Like there wasn't anything you could see. He was the top corner. You took the top corner, and you just simply didn't pan out. It happens. You hate for it to happen to you because you draft the top 5 talent to make immediate impact. But sometimes that happens. Injuries are a part of the game, and it just happens. Yeah, I personally agree as well. To close it out, it has to be Derek Stingley because the other corners, they just haven't had the kind of season that Derek Stingley had his first year. The first year Stingley was the top-rated corner in the nation.
Yeah.
After his first year, he was the best corner in the nation. His last 2 years were just basically injuries and the team just being terrible. So I think you got to give him an opportunity. He has to be drafted in the top 10, and I'm pretty much looking at, the Jets because they have him slated at the Jets at 4. I would say either Jets or Giants. I think you're good if you're the Panthers. You already have your cornerback tree set. And, if you want to pair up for Denver at 9, like if there's a corner that falls at 9, maybe take them, but, who knows? We'll have to see what happens. I think the Senior Bowl was great. I think it's going to be exciting to see where these players land. It's going to be an interesting free agency in March because then we get to see how the teams approach the draft, which will be in April. And, we'll see what kind of teams reach and what kind of teams don't. And before we close out, Ethan, what do you think your Bears are going to do in this draft after watching the Senior Bowl? What did you hope and prayer?
I think that they trade down. I think they take their high second, move to a mid, and get like a fourth, maybe a seventh, as well as the second that they trade down to. So.
All right. Well, I just hope the Green Bay Packers draft a solid receiver. If Alave or Williamson or just any receiver, even your guy from USC, if he's there, just take him. Just any receiver would be a help at 28. I don't care who it is. Just give me a receiver at 28, and we'll be satisfied. Yeah. Then appreciate you guys tuning in. And with that being said, Ethan, where can the people find all the great stuff that you do?
Right here at my at Ethan_Carboni. I tweet anytime I have something out. I retweet my podcast anytime I have a new one out. Go follow me on there.
All right. And then for me, my Twitter handle is down below. I'm Matt_Skura. Check out my Instagram at Matt_Skura20. And both of those links in my bio, you have access to my link tree, which gives access to my sports podcast that me and my great friend Caleb Conant do called MCS Real Sports Podcast. We talk all things NBA and NFL related. You name it, it's available everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, iHeartRadio, you name it, it's there. Appreciate all you guys tuning in here for the Senior Bowl recap and our thoughts on it. It's going to be an exciting week for football leading up to the Super Bowl that occurs next weekend. And, let's just hope we get an exciting Super Bowl game, an excited halftime show. And let's hope both of our teams make the correct draft decisions. This is Matt Skura here and my great co-host, Ethan Carboni. We are signing off on this Sunday, February 6th, 2022.